During the days of King James here in England, sorcery and witchcraft were so common a criminal problem that the good king felt it necessary to pass a law to prevent the use of parts of human bodies in such dark and foreboding rites. It read, "If any person shall take up any dead man, woman, or child out of their graves, or the skin, bone, or any part of any dead person to be used in any manner of witchcraft, such offender shall suffer the pains of death." The reason such a law was needed will be made clear when we begin our journey into the strange, the bizarre, the unexpected. Attend a funeral in China where the deceased is sprinkled with alcohol and the mourners refrained from changing clothes for 1 full month. Tour the bizarre memorials to unfortunate drivers erected at the scene of their death in Yugoslavia. Discover Adolf Hitler's plot to annihilate England with the secret weapon that could have changed the course of history. Get behind the wheel with a canine chauffeur in Nevada and witness bloody carnage as wild dogs in Africa bring down a doomed zebra. Get involved in one of the most unusual games in the world, a South Pacific version of the staid English game of cricket. And tap along on a dancing marathon through San Francisco streets. The strange, the bizarre, the unexpected. These are the kinds of subjects a man named Robert L. Ripley challenged us to
believe it or not.
In the towns and villages of modern England, the artifacts of sorcery and witchcraft are still preserved, often given a place of honor. Whether you are here in Whitby, England, or in your own hometown, it is a peculiar fact of undecipherable origin that most of us believe in the power of good luck charms, of lucky pieces, of horseshoes, and four-leaf clovers. Therefore, it is not altogether surprising that certain individuals find one talisman more beneficial than another. For example, some people whistle when they walk by a cemetery. Others fondle a rabbit's foot for good luck. Still others place their faith in the hand of glory. This is a glory hand. It is perhaps a ghoulish charm, but at one time, there were those who believed firmly and unshakably in its mystic power. It is a human hand. It's rather dry and, frankly, chilling to the touch. Perhaps that's because it's said to be the hand of a murderer. It is believed to have been cut from the body as it hung from the gibbet in the early 1800s and prepared for its rather ingenious purpose in a manner prescribed by a bizarre recipe. Stories of its use are widespread, all with a similar plot. In the dark of night, a stranger approaches an inn. He is a lonely traveler or sometimes a beggar seeking a free meal and a place to sleep. The visitor, however, is not always what he seems to be. And despite the unsuspecting kindness and generosity shown to him by the maid and the innkeepers, he plots a sinister crime. For hidden within his cloak, he carries a glory hand. And aided by its mystic power, he will turn the hospitality of his hosts against them. For once they have left him alone, he will call upon the bizarre artifact and will become a gruesome candelabra, and while it burns, the victims will be drawn into a deep, trance-like sleep. Under the protection of the glory hand, the thief will then strip his victims of their belongings. The spell is cast with a secret incantation, which remains locked within the hidden hearts of sorcerers, past and present. And there, that story ends. But the postscript is here. This hand was found over the door lintel of an old cottage in a small town near here.
It's a grisly relic, and perhaps no longer effective for its original use. Why? Because the creators of the recipe of the Hand of Glory also provided the recipe for its antidote. You may want to take this down. For anti-glory hand ointment to be smeared around all doors and windows, blend together the following: the gall of a black cat, the fat of a white hen, and the blood of a screech owl. But only during the dog days of August. Made during any other time, it will be ineffective. And the Hand of Glory will get you. If you don't watch out. Believe it. Or not.
In an obscure London churchyard, a great man is entombed.
The famous writer and explorer, Sir Richard Burton, is buried here. Among Sir Richard's accomplishments, he was the translator of the Arabian Nights and, under an assumed name, the first to introduce the erotic secrets of the Kama Sutra into the English language. His fascination with Eastern cultures also prompted him to risk death to enter the forbidden city of Mecca and to be one of the first Europeans to explore North Africa in search of the source of the Nile. For him, life itself was an adventure, and death, perhaps just one more domain to explore.
Despite his celebrated life, Burton's remains will spend eternity in a dilapidated cemetery overgrown with weeds.
Sir Richard's wife, Lady Isabel, was determined to provide him in death with a setting as exotic as his exploits. So, after he died in Trieste, Italy, she had his body embalmed and transported here to this full-scale reproduction of an Arabian tent, made of stone on the outside, marble on the inside. In the end, she joined him in this tomb. And here they remain, all but forgotten. It was Lady Isabel who selected this site. Among other reasons, she may have believed that this location in times to come would be one of the most elegant neighborhoods in London. She was wrong on that count, but the gesture lives on. A monument as improbable in its setting as the life of the man it commemorates. It survives now as a symbol of the universal quest, not to conquer death, but to rise above it.
An even more unlikely setting to honor the dead is this treacherous curve on Yugoslavia's most dangerous highway. And yet, it is also strangely appropriate. For these memorials are placed at the spot where accident victims departed from this earth forever. No ordinary sign could more eloquently alert a motorist to this highway's hazards than these markers commemorating its toll in human lives. As if the ghosts of the departed still hovered here in the mist, bereaved families leave offerings. The presents include bouquets of flowers, food, and money. Perhaps their most ironic gift to honor the departed spirits is spirits, for alcohol was often responsible for the lethal accidents. Adorning some memorials are macabre relics from the violent moment of impact. Sometimes the steering wheel which triggered the destruction. These bizarre mementos of death provide an object lesson for the living. To drive carefully, lest they join those who took a violent detour into the beyond. Instead of a stark memorial, elsewhere in Eastern Europe, those who die young are given in death what they did not receive in life. Families sometimes go into debt to build a house for their departed, often more elaborate than the one they had while they were alive. Some boast a TV set or refrigerator, conveniences which its entombed residents will never enjoy. Bereaved families find comfort in visits to the homes of the deceased. Beside the burial slab, they even picnic with the dearly departed, a chance to break bread with one whose earthly appetites have ended. Many entombed here died young, before fulfilling life's promise. For others, however, death provided the path to glory. In Eastern Europe, a monument commemorates Serbian patriot Stevan Sinjelic, who gave his life for his people in 1809. Battling Turkish forces, Sinjelic killed 10,000 enemy soldiers and himself by exploding a powder magazine. In revenge, the Turks beheaded over 900 Serbians. Today, this building houses those grisly trophies, lest future generations forget the tragedy. This wall of skulls was built by the Turks to terrify the Serbians into submission. Today, the skulls proclaim a different message, the hollow victories of war and vengeance. In China, however, one of the world's most elaborate funerals is designed to pay reverent tribute to the dead. A village elder orchestrates the last rites as the body of the deceased, a 78-year-old woman, is placed within her coffin. Following ancient custom, the corpse has been kept in the family home for a week. Fashioned from paper, a young boy and girl will, according to folklore, guide the departed on the way to heaven. Thousands of years ago, human beings were sacrificed at funerals for the same purpose. The grieving family members wear white, the traditional color of mourning. They won't wash these clothes or bathe for a month. At a ceremonial banquet, paper symbolizing money is burned, a celestial expense allowance so the departed can bribe evil spirits and enter heaven's gate. Because custom forbids transporting the dead on any form of vehicle, the body must be carried by hand. To mask the odor of the week-old corpse, the coffin is drenched in sweet-smelling sugarcane wine. After the coffin is adorned with an ornate canopy, the procession begins. Following a marching band, villagers carry a willow tree to bring good luck to the bereaved family. Linked by rope, as by their ties to the departed, the mourners symbolically pull the coffin. Their precise order in the procession is determined by age and their relationship to the deceased. The coffin canopy is removed for the villagers to use again. The body will not be buried in a graveyard. Instead, the pallbearers will carry it to its final resting place in a remote field of grain, a site specially selected by the village elder. Though farmland in China is precious, a plot has been sacrificed for the burial. After the coffin descends into the ground, a bowl of grain is placed in the grave. The offering is followed by the 2 paper children to accompany the spirit to heaven. The crypt is sealed, but the ritual is still not complete. To escort the deceased into the beyond, mourners burn effigies of a horse and a heron. The paths to the grave are unique to each society. For the Chinese, complex rituals help the bereaved to endure the haunting certainty of death. In a few moments, follow the blood scent as wild dogs in Africa bring down a zebra. Find out how Adolf Hitler attempted to destroy England with the most awesome weapon of its time. And watch the most unusual game of cricket in the world.
Behold the dog in all his wonderful diversity. Believe it or not, through selective breeding, virtually every kind of dog in the world has been shaped by man. We're not sure exactly what the original dog looked like, but today there's a breed to suit every taste. Unlike many love affairs, the one between man and dog has gone on and on for at least 10,000 years, and the romance is still blooming. Throughout history, man has been decidedly fickle in his affections, shifting from breed to breed according to fashion and even politics. For dogs, there's been a lot of ups and downs. Take this bizarre-looking character with the mushed-in face. He's a Chinese Shar-Pei, and he was bred to look like this. Back in the 2nd century A.D., he enjoyed almost divine status when he served as a guard dog for the emperors of China. But when the communists came to power, Shar-Peis like Wang Chang here were declared a decadent bourgeois luxury, and the little creatures were almost wiped out. By 1966, there were only 12 left in existence. And then a handful of them were smuggled to America, and nature took its course. Now, there are almost 2,000 of these canine refugees in the United States alone. Still, the Shar-Pei is one of the rarest and most expensive dogs around. A purebred puppy like this costs $1,000 or more. Not quite an emperor's ransom, but enough to confirm its royal pedigree. Be he purebred or common mutt, a dog's life is often one of high adventure. If dogs are almost human, then it seems to follow that they should at least try to do everything we do. Retrieving dogs have been around for centuries, but a California Spaniel named Mac has discovered a new frontier. With the aid of a weighted belt, he's become a canine skin diver, soon to pursue oysters, clams, and abalone. An amazing Doberman named Brutus is a star attraction at his master's Tennessee service station. All day long, he races from car to cash register and back again.
Out. Good boy.
Sometimes Brutus returns the wrong credit card, but customers are very understanding. Perhaps the ultimate in helpful dogs is Judy, an Alsatian in England who performs dozens of household tasks. Her master, Peter Garrett, has only to lift a finger, and his mail always goes out by special delivery. Having pets can be a chore in itself, but Judy dutifully takes care of all that before she feeds herself. She'll clean up after dinner and leaves the dishes in the kitchen sink. And to top it all off, this dog walks the dog. Although she hasn't learned to do windows yet, Judy still makes Peter Garrett's life a breeze. We asked Garrett, a bachelor, if his dog wasn't almost as good as a mate.
I'd say better. Better.
In Carson City, Nevada, Buddy, the driving dog, takes his master for a spin. The mere sight of Buddy at the wheel has been known to panic other motorists. Buddy actually steers the car, but he's not allowed to drive alone. We seem to demand more and more of dogs, and still they continually strive to please. It's true that a language barrier exists, but even this is under constant assault.
How are you?
Come on.
How are you?
Can you say elevator? I love you. And I love you.
I love you too.
These are the wild dogs of East Africa, untamed and independent of man. Their behavior reveals ancient, deep-rooted instincts all dogs share. The dog is a highly social animal, respecting the established leaders of the pack, and the entire pack cooperates in caring for the pups and in the bloody and seemingly brutal act of killing for food. A hunting pack of wild dogs scouts the African plains with deadly efficiency. Once they've singled out a victim, they'll pursue it relentlessly. The dogs run in relays until their prey is exhausted. When their victim begins to run in circles, the end is near. The zebra is in a deep state of shock and probably feels little pain. Within a minute or so, it will be dead. The wild dogs are nomadic, always on the move. They'll pause briefly when pups are born, but soon start off again in search of food. The smallest pups fall far behind. Now the hyena, one of their few predators, moves in, hoping for a quick and easy kill. The full fury of the pack is unleashed to protect the stragglers. The hyena desperately tries to protect its hindquarters by crouching in a hole. Still, it takes a savage mauling. The hyena is let off with a painful lesson. In his intelligence and loyalty, the dog is wonderfully suited to his age-old alliance with man. And all over the world, there are monuments to his fidelity. One, in Edinburgh, Scotland, honors a dog named for a graveyard. Greyfriars Bobby.
It started here when Bobby's master died, and Bobby began keeping a vigil at his grave. In 1867, because he had no owner to pay for his license, Bobby was threatened by a law that made all unlicensed dogs subject to capture and death. Then the city's Lord Provost, a gentleman named William Chambers, stepped in. First, he was able to persuade the city council to pay for Bobby's license, and then he won official permission for Bobby to make himself at home here in the churchyard for as long as he lived. Except for the time it took to get something to eat at the local restaurant where he was always welcome, Bobby spent nearly every hour of his life right here at his master's side. This is the grave of Jock Gray, Bobby's owner, who died in 1858. Bobby died in 1872 at the ripe old age of, well, for a dog, 16. In human terms, Greyfriars Bobby, as he became known, kept his vigil for the equivalent of 98 years. Perhaps one of the longest mourning periods in history. Believe it or not.
In a few moments, Adolf Hitler's secret plot to annihilate England, which almost worked. Join a tap dance marathon in San Francisco and witness a South Pacific version of England's staid game of cricket. In the final years of World War II, Adolf Hitler transformed technology into terror. In June of 1944, the first jet-powered missile was launched toward London. On that Sunday morning in the heart of London, it was one of those tranquil moments that lends unreality to war. You could have heard birds in St. James's Park here, and a hymn being sung in the Royal Military Chapel just across the road. Then, almost 2 tons of high explosive hurtled out of the sky. The chapel vanished in a thundering billow of smoke and flame. It happened in an instant. 121 worshipers who died never knew what hit them. For the Allies in World War II, a terrible new menace was born. Despite everything they had done to stop him, Hitler had unleashed a revolutionary new weapon, and worse was yet to come. A self-propelled bomb, Hitler called it the V1. The V stood for vengeance. More than 7,000 reached England. As a weapon of terror, the V1 was effective until new proximity shells were designed which detonated even if they only came close to the flying bomb. With the development of radar, accuracy increased still more until 1 out of 3 were being knocked out of the air. For pilots of the Royal Air Force, the challenge was to shoot them down before they reached populated areas. Soon, they had learned how to win a dangerous game of hound and hare. At the Nazi Rocket Research Center in the Baltic port city of Peenemünde, the development of a new and more deadly weapon was underway. A long-distance missile capable of delivering a warhead containing 2,000 pounds of high explosives. To German scientists, including young Werner von Braun, the opportunity to prove their theories was irresistible. In test firings, however, their experiments proved to be less than satisfactory. Despite an advanced guidance system, the rocket was far from reliable. In at least one instance, what went up immediately came down on a nearby Luftwaffe base. The string of test failures, however, did not deter the scientists in their efforts to continue their experimentation. A film was prepared to support a request for additional funding as well as a priority status. It was designed for showing to an audience of one. What Adolf Hitler did not know, however, was that this film presented only those tests which had been successful. Cleverly edited film convincingly portrayed the V-2 as a perfect weapon. Promptly ordering full and immediate production, Adolf Hitler was confident the new rocket would gain the victory he so desperately needed. Hitler's decision added urgency to Britain's concern about the Nazi research facility. Triggered by unverified reports from within the Peenemünde complex itself, aerial photographs confirmed that the V-2 was a frightening reality. For Winston Churchill, its mere existence was sufficient to prompt immediate action. The only way to stop Hitler's terror weapon was to destroy it on the ground and to eliminate the German scientists who had conceived and constructed it. To wipe out Peenemünde and its facilities, the British committed virtually their entire strike force of 600 bombers in one massive nighttime assault. The primary target was to be the workshops and living quarters. In the aftermath of the raid, Peenemünde smoldered in ruin. The homes of the scientists were destroyed, but the scientists escaped. Tragically, the first bombs accidentally fell on a nearby concentration camp, killing some of the agents who had reported the V-2 to the British. For the Nazis, the British raid forced a withdrawal of the missiles deep into occupied Poland. There, secret experiments could continue to perfect the fuel and guidance systems, vital if rockets were to fulfill Hitler's dream of one day striking at New York City. Still riddled with problems, some rockets exploded or fell into rural areas in eastern Poland. One was recovered by members of the Polish underground. If it could be smuggled out, Allied scientists would have their first opportunity to study Hitler's secret weapon. The dismantled parts were hidden in vegetable carts like these and delivered to a clandestine landing strip to be flown to England. The British discovery of the missile, however, could not prevent the Nazi rush to put the perfected missiles into use. Now fired from mobile launch pads, the V-2s were poised to strike London. With the push of a button, a ton of high explosives was hurtled 50 miles high to the edge of space. Then at speeds of over 3,000 miles an hour, they would plummet silently out of the clear blue sky. Missiles fell on military and civilian targets alike. Entire city blocks were devastated without warning. In desperation, the British increased their counterattacks on Nazi V-2 installations. It was not until Allied forces pressed deep into Germany, however, that the deadly missiles ceased to fall, and then an unprecedented race began. the victors competed with each other to confiscate, for their own use, Germany's secret weapons. The British and the Americans lost the crucial race to Peenemünde. The deserted ruins of the Nazi research site were captured by the Russians, who appropriated all German equipment that fell into their hands. America, however, won the real prize, the cream of Germany's rocket scientists, including Hitler's top missile specialist who had recently broken his arm, and who would soon lead America's journey into space, Dr. Werner von Braun.
Today, German rockets of the 1940s are crude relics of war, consigned to museums. Paradoxically, they speak of both the best and the worst capabilities of the human mind. Consider, Hitler built his rockets for vengeance. With them, he claimed almost 9,000 victims and injured 24,000 more. The immense suffering he inflicted accomplished nothing. But in his blind, destructive anger, Hitler left a legacy he never imagined. Other men would turn his technology of terror to other ends. Hitler once vowed he would conquer the world. Instead, he unwittingly gave that world the key to the conquest of space. Believe it or not.
A rocket plane propelled by gunpowder was designed by a German army officer in 1847. Believe it or not. In a few moments, tap dancing across San Francisco, and a South Pacific ball game that becomes a high-spirited carnival.
Gotta dance. For most of us, young and old, this is one of nature's first commandments to body and soul. And the dancing we do reflects our times, our thoughts, feelings, and attitudes.
This is called a time step. It's one of the rudimentary moves that every dancer in show business is supposed to know how to do. As an art form or as a social custom, dancing is such a natural act that it's hard to believe that anyone could ever have taken offense at it. Yet, believe it or not, when Johann Strauss introduced the waltz into Viennese high society, quite a few did find it objectionable. They were shocked to see, for the first time in our Western civilization, men and women formally indulge in what we now call touch dancing. Until then, nothing but the lady's dainty-gloved hand had come into contact with the dandified gentleman who escorted her onto the floor. The waltz, in fact, caused quite a scandal. It was the 19th century equivalent of rock and roll, and guardians of public morality rose up to protest what they called a disgusting display. Well, things have changed a lot since the good people of Vienna expressed that opinion. But one thing that has never changed is what dancing is all about. Dance, after all, is a physical, unspoken language, as old as it is universal. For the Trobriand Islanders of the South Pacific, an exotic combination of sport and dance has become a substitute for their ritual tribal wars. British colonial officials outlawed tribal war back at the turn of the century. But the Islanders' rivalries continued as they took up the game of cricket, celebrating every play with a dance. This is the airplane team. 50 men or more in full fighting regalia, imitating warplanes based here during World War II. The affair goes on for an entire day. The players are their own cheerleaders. They boast of their skill and ridicule the opposing team. Cricket becomes an exuberant expression of Trobriand politics. Where is there a more creative and colorful substitute for organized violence? The Trobriand Islanders have put the rest of the world to shame. Dance can sometimes be a way to transcend tragedy. The 4 members of this unique dance troupe practice what they call dance as a healing art. Both the male performers are disabled. Due to disease, one is unable to move most of his body. Eddie Enos lost his legs when he stepped on a landmine in Vietnam, but his loss has not prevented him from helping to develop a new form of dance. This dance gives the troupe its name. It's called Wheels.
I can't change what I am, so my torn up body might not be appealing to other people, but I love it. It's mine. I see myself as me, as a man. How you deal with it is just simply, I love life. That's how I deal with it, just by saying, hey, I'm alive. I can feel, I can hope, I can dream.
Young dancing girls of the Don and Garay tribes of West Africa have mastered the exotic arts of contortion, and so they're called the Snake Maidens. The origins of the Snake Maidens dance are rooted in ancient customs. It's believed that the dance is supernaturally inspired, and that the safety of the Snake Maidens is ensured by a magic spell, so that they can be deliberately exposed to danger. Will flick within inches of the girls' bodies in the ultimate test of their magic invulnerability. Once again, the Snake Maidens dance has confirmed the magic powers that safeguard all their people. Quite a different spirit inspires a marathon tap dance recently performed on Labor Day in the streets of San Francisco. A group called Rosie Radiator and the Pushrods danced 3 miles non-stop, going for a world record. Officially, the dance is to honor the workers of San Francisco. It amazes onlookers, and some even drop what they're doing and fall into step, at least for a block or two. After
After almost 3 hours of non-stop tapping, it's time for the grand finale.
We do it for laborers in the city, we do it for tap dancing, we do it for the city itself, and we most of all do it because it's a heck of a lot of fun. So without further ado, we're going to present to you now the signature step of tap dancing. The one you have to have perfect, whether you go 3 miles or 3 inches. We're ready. Ready! Woo!
Dancing as an art, as opposed to a social custom, is not always applauded. As a matter of fact, it has sometimes been ridiculed. Ballet was not accepted, in fact, not really born, until a king of France put his best foot forward. His name was Louis XIV, and when he was 15 years old, he danced the lead in an extravaganza called Ballet de la Nuit, Dance of the Night. As a matter of fact, that's how Louis got his nickname. He wore a costume representing the bright golden orb of the sun. And for the rest of his life, he was called the Sun King. I'm sure it was a remarkable debut, and certainly proof of the young king's stamina, as well as that of his captive audience. Believe it or not, the performance lasted 13 hours.
There's no doubt that champagne is associated with celebrations. Drinking it from a lady's shoe, however, is more often said than done. The problem with such an admittedly romantic act is that, frankly, it's impractical and messy. That didn't stop the fans of the great Austrian dancer Fanny Elssler from imbibing the bubbly in this manner. It's quite a tribute. But Fanny was one of the most prominent ballerinas of the mid-1800s and the most widely traveled. Soggy slippers and all. Fanny's fans were surpassed in the expression of their adoration, however, by the aficionados of her contemporary, Maria Taglioni. She is often credited with being the first ballerina to dance en pointe, on her toes. There may have been others before her, but Maria was the one who created a public sensation. As a matter of fact, her performances drove audiences wild. She danced her way through Germany, Italy, France, and in 1837, when Maria appeared in Russia, in St. Petersburg, her enthralled fans were not content with merely drinking champagne from her toe shoes. They ate them. Both. With, I trust, an appropriate Russian dressing. Believe it? Or not.
Next Sunday.
It's too quiet.
Yeah, I noticed.
Somewhere in this house, a long-lost treasure is hidden.
You know, we might be walking into a trap.
And in the dark corners, danger waits. The Tom Swift and Linda Craig Mystery Hour, 1 week from tonight at 7, 6 Central and Mountain.